Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a crime film from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2017, directed by Sung Hyun-byun, and this film is called The Merciless. So The Merciless is set with the police that are trying to track down this gangster. Now, he's a very influential gangster and he seems to be out of the police grip. And so they get the services of this young man. Now, this young man is an undercover and he goes into the jail and he befriends this guy, and this is where they're going to try and bring him down. So when they get out of the prison, there are a few things that happen in the prison to this young man where he starts to get a bit of a connection with the guy that he's trying to infiltrate. And so there are some things that the police do that kind of get on the wrong side of this young man, and so his loyalties are in the middle. He doesn't know whether to go to the criminal side or the police side. And so when he comes out of the prison, he starts to become further intensifying his relationship, and he's becoming more and more involved in the crime syndicate. But then as the police believe that they're getting somewhere, this young man starts to think that maybe the police are just as corrupt as the criminals he's trying to bring down. And so it all adds up into something that is very theatrical, and what happens at the end and whether or not the police get what they want, or in fact this man goes on to the path of crime, is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now, my thoughts on The Merciless. I didn't know what to expect with this movie. I'm a massive, massive fan of South Korean crime films. You've got movies such as Bittersweet Life from Kim Jong-un. You've got The Nameless Gangster. You've also got films like New World. Now, New World is my favourite gangster film of all time from anywhere on this planet. That was a movie that was absolutely brilliant. It's a movie that's not exactly the most creative, but just the way it was done, I just think Koreans really understand what they're doing. And so it's right up there with Martin Scorsese's work. But the movie I just mentioned, Nameless Gangster, I thought that was a little bit of a letdown, but it still had really interesting elements. And so for that reason, I really wanted to see The Merciless, but I had my hesitations based on the fact that I haven't really heard about it. Now, I've said time and time again in my reviews, if you haven't heard about a film, then it's usually for the reason of whether it's just underrated and it's flown under the radar, or it's just not that good. And so when it comes to South Korean crime, the hype is up there, the expectation, the pedestal is very high, and that can be a little bit unfair towards these lesser known films, is because maybe they just don't have the quality to match it up there with the bigger budget South Korean films. And so The Merciless, it looked very interesting, but as I said, the hesitation of not knowing whether or not it was just an underrated film or a movie that's just been panned. And so after watching The Merciless, I will definitely say that this is a movie that has gone under the radars, because it was very, very impressive, and I enjoyed this quite a bit. And the thing I loved most about The Merciless is that it avoids what a lot of South Korean films do. What a lot of South Korean films do is really put on the melodrama. Whether it's people crying, it's drawn out sequences with really sad music that's supposed to tug at your heartstrings. It's just laziness. It's not, they're not doing the job of actually giving you an insight into the person and actually feeling sadness for that person in a very natural way. And so what they think they can do, and not only South Korean cinema, but a lot of cinema in general, is that if they don't have the ability to give you a character that you can really sympathise for, they basically just pour on the mellow music. They just give you a situation where you're supposed to sympathise it for, but because the melodrama is so over the top, it almost feels like an insult to your intelligence. And that if you actually spent time knowing this person, you wouldn't need that really mellow drama. And so I thought, all right, well, was the Merciless going to do that? And I thought that, it steers clear of that, and that's the reason why this movie works, is that there are some very sad moments, there are some moments that tug on the heartstrings, but they're sufficient enough to get its point across, and then it goes to the next scene. And I thought that the relationship build-up between the criminal and this undercover agent, I thought was fantastic, because I thought as though this criminal was a father figure. And as the movie starts to progress, it's just under 2 hours, and I thought the runtime was fantastic, because the majority of this film takes place with that relationship, and how this young man was getting under the wing of this criminal, and I could feel as though it was very natural in the way that they cared for each other. And so I felt as though I could gravitate towards this criminal, and it didn't need to have really lazy tricks in order to try and give you that sympathy, give you that connection. Just the natural connection is there, and when they start to go through the dilemmas that they face, I could feel as though I was there with them. And so the director does a really good job at not lingering too much on the melodrama. It's just giving you enough to give you the input into what these characters were feeling. And so the overall script, I thought, in this movie was good. Is that, as I said, it gives you more than enough time to really gravitate towards these people. They're real people. Just because this guy's a criminal, the director actually gives you something much more than just black and white. He gives you a bit of grey area that indicate that this criminal was a likeable man. He had very good qualities, but it was the environment that he was put in that was shaping the person that he is, and so he does have shades of a really likable person. Therefore, I could actually sympathise for him. And so, even when bad things are happening to these criminals that society rightly so deems as bad guys, it doesn't necessarily mean that these bad guys don't have any redeemable qualities. And I think that the movie really shows that in a very powerful way. And so, when the emotions start to happen towards the end, I never felt as though it was kicking into overdrive as far as melodrama is concerned. Yes, there is sad music. Yes, there's a few tears that are shed, but I thought because I knew these people, I went on the journey with them, therefore I never felt as though it was an insult to the intelligence. It's very well choreographed, this film, as far as the action is concerned. There are some typical sort of South Korean crime action sequences with a lot of axes and knives. There's a massive brawls in the film, which is reminiscent to films like Old Boy and New World and Asura, City of Madness. And so it does borrow a lot that makes South Korean crime films very good, but it has its own heart. It has its own beating heart that gives it its own characteristic, and it sets itself from a lot of other films. So this is a movie that does have a lot of twists and turns, but as I said, because the characters are so likeable, the twists and turns work very well. And it's a movie about loyalty, it's a movie about trust and how delicate trust can be. And so you've got good guys and bad guys who are doing bad things, and both of them are doing bad things, so you don't know where this main character's loyalty is going to lie. And as I said, that's the benefit of not having black and white. The police are good guys, the bad guys are bad guys, is that the police are doing some shifty things and the criminals are doing shifty things. And so I thought, all right, well, the balance is there. The seesaw is going up and down, and that's what creates suspense. That's what creates mystery. And I thought as though, all right, all the questions that the director begs in this film want answering, and as you answer some of the questions as it goes along, it becomes more and more enthralling. And so the plot thickens, and I thought the end of the film was fantastic, and it really shoots home how powerful loyalty, how powerful trust can be, and how you can gain trust, but just as quickly you can break that trust. And so I felt the heartbreak that all these characters are going through. I felt as though they didn't want to betray the next person, but there are certain circumstances where they had to. And so I felt the plight. I thought it was down to the very good acting, and as I said, the overall, the fact that the characters had enough in them to really invest your time in them, that's what creates the emotion that a lot of not only South Korean films lack, but films in general, is because they don't really go for the detail of the character. They go for the situation. And if you've got a situation that's supposed to be sad, but they haven't had any time to the characters, all you do is just pour on the sad music, and that's supposed to make you feel upset. But because they're fuzzy faces in the background, you don't associate them with people, you associate them with just characters in a film that are there to die. And so you never feel as though you go on the journey, but in this movie you do. And so you feel the heartache whenever something bad happens, and that's the reason why I really like this movie. And so if you are a fan of South Korean crime films, The Merciless is definitely one I would recommend. It's quite brutal in parts, doesn't overdo the brutality, but what the movie's shining point is the characters and the twisty sort of element that the story has that keeps you guessing right up into the end. So if this sounds like your kind of thing, definitely go out there and see it. I'm going to give The Merciless 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.